Hey guys, so today we're going to be covering our next topic in ancient Roman studies, which is the transition of the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. But before we begin, let's just recap on what we know about the Roman Republic. As you know, the Romans eventually overthrew their kings in Rome. Unfortunately, many of the later kings were seen as very tyrannical and oppressors of the people, so the people overthrew the last king, and they established what was known as a republic in which they would elect their own officials to represent them in government. This style of government would last in Rome for 500 years. We had our hierarchy of government, which was the multiple positions of state, which were your two councils. You had your senators, which were the rich patricians. You had your plebeian council, which was the poor plebeians. You had your tribunes, which were your representatives of the plebeian council. You had your governors, which were the local rulers of conquered areas that Rome controlled. You had your aediles, which were your city officials, and you had your censors, which pretty much did the Roman census in the Roman Republic. The way the government operated, it was a republic. So pretty much people could elect officials to represent them in the government and make laws suitable for Rome. Patricians versus plebeians, rich versus poor. You had the 12 Tables of Rome, which were the basis of Roman law. They controlled what people did, how people did it, and pretty much what people did in territories outside of the empire. And the style in Rome is the basis and model for modern democracies today. The Roman Senate, you could see it as the United States Senate. The plebeian council could be the equivalent of the House of Representatives, and then your two councils are kind of act like your president. The two councils were a one-term position, and they had the power to make war, make laws, and pretty much do whatever they wanted. On Senate approval, of course. In the beginnings of the empire, the Romans were becoming a very big empire at this time. All of Italy was under Roman control by 264 BCE. Rome was victorious in the First Punic War. They gained control of Sicily, the Western Mediterranean, and Spain. They were again victorious in the Third and last Punic War in and they gained control of Northern Africa. And the Romans defeated Macedonian King Philip V, in which they gained control of Macedonia in Greece. Rome had control of all these areas by the time they defeated Macedonian King Philip V. In Rome, the complex political institution, which was known as the Republic, began to crumble under the weight of the growing empire. The empire was becoming very big and is becoming very hard to govern. Internal violence and turmoil was erupting everywhere. There was a big widening gap between rich and poor citizens. And the government was being limited to privileged classes. So pretty much, if you wanted to be in the Senate, if you wanted to be a governor, if you wanted to be a council, you had to be a rich citizen. The poor could not be a key position in government. You had rise of military leaders, dictators, and warlords. Militaries were extremely loyal to their ruling commanders. A lot of militaries were not loyal to the Senate or the government in Rome. They were loyal to their ruling commanders. You had Gaius Marius and General Sulla, who became two dictators who would take over in Rome around 84 BC. And you also had the first triumvirate, which was General Pompey, Marcus Crassus, and Julius Caesar. But the biggest reason Rome became an empire was with this individual, Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar began his career in Rome. There was a power struggle in Rome between Caesar's family and General Sulla. In order to escape Sulla, Caesar joined the army, and he began rising through the ranks. By joining the army, he gained very powerful allies in General Pompey the Great and Marcus Crassus. And he was also a very excellent speaker, and he was loved by the people. When Sulla died, he was elected as a consul by the Senate. And after his tenure as consul was over, he became governor of Gaul. He was in charge of 4 Roman legions there, and he was a very successful military commander in Gaul. Okay, his loyalty from the army was very great. Okay, they were loyal to him only. They pretty much didn't listen to what the Senate said. They listened to what Caesar said. This began to worry the Senate, and he was also the conqueror of Gaul. He had all of Gaul conquered while he was governor of Gaul. There was trouble between Caesar and the Roman Senate. Caesar was running for consul again after his time in Gaul. The Senate pretty much this time said absolutely not. You know, he was becoming way too powerful, and he was seen as a threat. And the Senate worried about the power Caesar had, the armies. He had vast armies, and they were worried about what would happen if he had a key position in government. Also, a civil war between Caesar and Pompey the Great broke out. Pompey was very jealous that Caesar was becoming a very successful military commander. So, Pompey pretty much had control over the rich aristocrats, while Caesar had control over the people. The people loved Caesar. They didn't love Pompey. Caesar dominated Rome in 49 BCE. He came in and he took over control of the city. And he also waged an 18-month war, and he defeated Pompey in Egypt, in which Pompey was killed. Caesar became dictator of Rome in 46 BCE. This is very key, because in 46 BCE, the Senate elected Caesar as dictator, and the Roman Republic came to a crashing end. His accomplishments as dictator, he pretty much put his supporters in Rome, so now there was nobody in the Senate that could oppose him. Everybody was his friend. He had all his friends put in the Senate. He constructed the city of Rome. He built buildings, he built temples, and he had a calendar change. His calendar was the Julian calendar, which we use today, 365 years and 1 leap year. Unfortunately, a lot of people were very afraid of the power Caesar had in Rome, and a lot of people were afraid of what he would do. So unfortunately, when Caesar entered the Senate on March 15th, 44 BCE, he was assassinated. Legend goes that he was stabbed 23 times in the Senate building. Later, Caesar's nephew, Gaius Octavian Tyrannus, who would become Augustus, was Caesar's heir. He got involved with his uncle Caesar. Since Caesar didn't have a son of his own, he became very fond of Augustus, and he made Augustus heir to his name and fortune. Augustus was away from Rome when Caesar was murdered, and he was told that he was now heir to his name and fortune, so Augustus began gathering his armies. His allies and his support, he had military support, and he had support from the Senate. Octavian, along with Mark Antony and Lepidus, they formed the second triumvirate. Pretty much the power was just, they all tried to become dictator, and he kind of made a truce with them. Unfortunately, the truce didn't last very long. Battles ensued within the allegiance. Lepidus was defeated, and Mark Antony was defeated in Egypt along with his ally Cleopatra, in which they committed suicide. Augustus, after he defeated both Lepidus and Mark Antony, became the first emperor of Rome, and the Senate named him Emperor Augustus Caesar. He was an excellent ruler, and there was a 200-year golden age in Rome known as the Pax Romana under him. Augustus would die, and his stepson Tiberius would take over. But pretty much the Roman Empire, there would be many emperors of the Roman Empire, some good and some bad, each adding his own uniqueness to the might of the empire. And the line of emperors would last until 476 AD, when the last emperor, Romulus Augustus, was removed from power by the Ostrogoths, ending the Western Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire would rule for almost 4 centuries after Augustus. And for next time, guys, we'll be covering the rise of Christianity. We'll be talking about the rise of Christianity within the Roman Empire and how early Christians and Christian doctrine threatened the Roman Empire. Thank you very much for watching, guys.